Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm outside in the garden this afternoon because I wanted to just check up on everything after all of this rain that we've been having. A lot of the plants are doing okay. Some of them are looking a little bit yellow and were fallen over a little bit. In particular, the corn behind me was a little bit sad after all of this rain. But primarily I wanted to come out here and check up on all of my seedlings that I have, because we don't exactly have a enclosed area outside yet. We don't have a greenhouse or anything that is undercover. So I have been moving these seedlings in and outside of the house and giving them a little bit of sun outside when it is sunny, like right now. But there has been a few problems with some of the seedlings that I wanted to chat through this video, kind of do a video a little bit about seedling health, what you might want to look for, and just some overall tips to get healthy seedlings. So I planted a lot of these seedlings in some videos that I filmed for YouTube. They're down here right now on top of the worm farms. And this is primarily where they have been getting their sun, because this is the most enclosed area because we have a balcony above this area. I have been checking on them every day and I might set the camera up and just show you a few little things that have gone wrong with these seedlings and then show you how I am going to fix that. Right, I have set up all the little seedlings to show you what's going on with these. Also got my of tea, so make sure you grab a cup of tea or coffee for this video. As many of you are experiencing right now in Australia, we're getting a lot of rain, or have had a lot of rain. It has been a really wet summer, and that makes gardening a little bit challenging, particularly when you're raising your seedlings. So for me, the first problem that I've had is lack of light. I haven't been able to give these the right amount of light they need, and the best direction for the light is a constant light above these seedlings. So not coming from an angle. Usually when you think about the sun, it's very gradual in terms of its movement, and it's constant throughout each day. For me, as you can kind of see behind me, I don't have any cover for a lot of these, and the rain was just absolutely torrential for the past couple of days, which is just not going to end really well when you're trying to grow seeds or germinate seeds outside. The raindrops were just too heavy and they've already caused a little bit of damage to some of these seed trays. So what I had to do was keep it inside. Keeping it inside and raising your seeds inside often causes them to go leggy, which is one of the main problems that people have when they're starting to germinate seeds and grow seedlings. In a sense, that pretty much means that the plant is just growing too tall compared to what its normal rate should be. You can really tell some of these seedlings are struggling. The stem is just a lot longer than it should be. If you also start to see your seedlings flop over or fall over because they are too long, the weight of the tops are just making them fall over. That's also an indication that your seedlings are going leggy. And the main reason for this is just not enough light. So when I'm putting these up next to a window, which is how a lot of these were raised, they were bending towards the sun. Thankfully, they've kind of corrected themselves right now. But I was a little bit worried at the start, because what I was having to do was turn over the tray pretty much every hour or two to make sure that it was getting an equal amount of light on either sides of the plant. Rather than if it was outside, it would be getting that gradual movement of sunlight and overall much better light than when you're facing it just to one window. So how to correct when a plant goes leggy? It really depends on how much it has gone leggy and how far you've left it. Sometimes there's actually nothing you can do and you just need to start all over again. But correcting them, I've heard that you can place these in a cooler temperature. It has been really warm here. I don't really have very good temperature fluctuation and I can't really monitor the temperature that well. A cooler temperature can just make them stop growing as fast. If they're in a warm temperature, like it's been so humid and warm here, they're growing super fast and they're more likely to get leggy. So you can put them in a cooler area for a little bit or intermittently throughout the day to stunt the growth. Or you can propagate them and plant them into a bigger pot by planting the plant just a little bit deeper than it already is in the seed tray. This is really good to do for brassicas and particularly tomatoes, which you can plant much deeper than the actual height of the plant, because out the side of the stem roots will grow and you'll have an all over stronger plant. You can do that in a sense to some other plants, like I've got some mizuna here and some broccoli, which I will plant a little bit deeper when they do go into the ground. And same with these zinnias and cosmos here, I will kind of mound them up a little bit with mulch when I pop them in the ground to make sure that they're really stable. The second problem that you may come across, particularly with this more humid weather, is something called damping off. Really not a fun thing to deal with your plants, and I have been really highly monitoring my plants because I really didn't want to see some damping off. And thankfully, I don't think, fingers crossed, they do. I have been not watering this since it had all of the rain in it, just to dry out these trays. Damping off is pretty much a disease that is caused by a bunch of different pathogens that can get into your soil and just leads to an overall dead looking and a dead plant. You can tell a lot of the time because it'll happen to all of your seedlings in one tray as the pathogens kind of spread from cell to cell. And what you can look for are things like no roots on the plants. The plants just start to rot away and they'll often end up falling over. So if you find your plants falling over, have a look at what's happening with the roots. And you might start to see that there is no roots, and that's how you can tell if you've got damping off. Another thing is that your plants just don't grow anymore. You just find a stunt in growth, and oftentimes, just overall you can see that the plant is starting to rot. Unfortunately, there's really not that much you can do with damping off. The only things you can do for it is just preventing it, which is hard when you can't really control the weather. But you can do things like making sure you're planting into potting mix or seed raising mix that drains really well, and not using kind of garden soil or heavy soil, which is less likely to have the water drain out. So making sure that you've got a good well draining seed raising mix, not overwatering your plants, and bringing them inside if they're outside, and making sure that the tray doesn't get a lot of water in it. And also, if you notice that you're about to get cooler weather, damp and cool conditions is usually when you have damping off. So anytime that it's sunny, put the plants out, let them have a little bit of sun. Sun is obviously great for growth of your seedlings, but it's also really great to just kill a lot of pathogens and bad bacteria that you may have on the surface of your soil. So the last problem, which it's not really a problem per se, but it can be a problem if you don't work with it correctly, and that is just having too many seeds that have germinated in one cell. This is great if you're doing multi-sowing for things that like that, like beetroot or radishes. I know some people multi-sow, even lettuce is fine. But for me, what my goal is to create really healthy seedlings in this one tray that I'm then hopefully just going to plant out directly into the garden. And the way I can monitor that is to just have one in each cell. It's not a very big space for one seedling, but it is enough for the plants to establish themselves to then get their true leaves. After their little cotyledons that they get is the first two little leaves that come out. They get their true leaves, and then they actually start photosynthesizing properly and taking in nutrients from the soil. So thinning your seedlings, you want to be really gentle with this, and I'll put an overlay on the screen now of how I thin the seedlings. I'm going to thin both of these trays that I have here. So there's so many different methods to do it. I either like to use scissors or I just pinch the plants. So with these brassicas that I have here, I look for the strongest plant and the plant that is most in the middle of the cell. If it's in the middle of the cell, then it's going to have much more chance of taking in nutrients all around it rather than the roots being slammed next to the ends of the cell wall. So I go along and I pretty much just snip any of the plants that aren't in the very middle that I want to take out at the base of the soil. So I snip it off. It's not going to regrow, but it is something you just might want to keep an eye on. So yeah, I go along and I just snip these, or I just pinch them. I don't try and pull them out. What can happen if you pull them out, you just disturb the roots in the whole cell, and this can disturb the plant that you want to keep in the middle of the cell. So I like to thin the seedlings when I can start to see that they have true leaves coming up, because I know that the plant has kind of made it. It doesn't have any symptoms of damping off, and it looks like a pretty strong and healthy plant. Once I do that, after a week or two of them also having their true leaves, I like to give them a little bit of a fertilize, just a really light fertilize with some organic water soluble fertilizer. Like seaweed fertilizer is a really great one. So you can use a little spray bottle with some fertilizer or a watering can. You do just want to make sure that if you are at risk of having damping off, if you've kind of got those really humid and cool conditions, you might just want to water from the base of each plant rather than watering on top. This can just ensure that you're not getting the leaves too wet if they don't really have the chance to dry out, and that means there's going to be less chance of mold on the leaves of your plants. But things like worm fertilizer, like, I don't really worry. I spray that on the leaves of a lot of my plants, and it's one way for them to uptake it. So it's up to you with your personal preference. There are a few kind of yes and no's with gardening, but overall I don't really have a lot of rules. The last thing that I wanted to touch up upon, that if you are keeping your seedlings inside, or if you have zero natural wind, which is very unlikely for where we live, which is very windy, you want to make sure that your seedlings are getting regular movement somehow. You'll see sometimes people will go and just like brush their seedlings like this, and this is not because they're having a strong moment and connection with their seedlings. They're actually doing it for a reason, and that is to strengthen the root system of that plant. So a lot of the times growers who grow inside starting greenhouses will have many fans fanning their seedlings, and what this does is just promote really good airflow for your seedlings, which is one, going to reduce the risk of pathogens and bacteria forming on the soil and around your plants. But it also is allowing the plants to move, and as they move, it signals down into the roots that they actually need to grow stronger. You think about trees and how tall they are. The only way they get to be like that is as they grow, they move with the wind, and the roots then know how much they should expand depending on the type of tree, so they can actually support that large living thing above the soil. Nature is a wonderful thing, and sometimes you kind of need to help out a little bit as a gardener just to make sure that your seedlings are as healthy as they can be. So I really hope that this video was useful for you, and that you maybe learnt something or reminded you of something to just overall have healthy seedlings. I regularly like to watch videos like this to remind myself of things that I can be doing to prevent certain things with my seedlings, because you spend so much time and get so much joy from seeing that little seed germinate and grow, but this is kind of the most critical time, is making sure that you have healthy seedlings before you plant them out into your garden, because having healthy seedlings is going to ensure that you will have healthy plants and hopefully provide you with lots of joy or food or beauty in your garden. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're all having a lovely day wherever you are in the world, and until my next one, happy gardening everyone.